Spiritual crazy story time about how spirit animals do not play with me, especially when it comes to horrible men. Especially when it comes to horrible men, probably from my past lives that they really don't like. Let's talk about it. Okay, so in my last TikTok, I talked about when I was talking about the two craziest stories that's ever happened to me spiritually. Check that out with the fairy and the goddess that tried to inhabit my body. But let's talk about the spirit animals. So like I said, right before, a couple of months before, I didn't know I was going to move. Spirit was going to move me to start my spiritual business and go into deep like healing and stuff like that, as well as start TikTok and talk to all of you. But I didn't have any of those planned. That was not the plan. I was working in PR. I was working in real estate. I was a very different person at this time. But I was reading tarot. I was already reading tarot for like 2-3 years. But it was very grounded. I was doing like little spreads for self-care. It was very grounded. But my guides were making themselves known to me, presenting themselves in a very blunt way to let me know that I'm protected, that I can reach out to them. I don't know if I was receptive in that way to the crazy stuff that was happening. It was more petrifying how it was happening, but let's talk about Okay, so one of my close friends at the time, her boyfriend or ex, I don't know, was on a basketball team, and we'd have to drive up. I was living in LA at the time, and we'd have to drive up into the valley, kind of pretty deep into the valley, to go. We lived in like West LA around Santa Monica, UCLA area, but we'd have to drive up into the valley to go see the boyfriend and his team. And she was telling me, she was just like, there's this guy, like, I know you're really gonna like him, whatever, like, you're really gonna like him. And at the time I was open to dating. Like I said, I was very grounded with spirituality. I was not like listening to my higher self at all. I was just like reading tarot, didn't even like realize I was very grounded, very, very practical. Okay, so I was fully hooking up. I was being a college student, like didn't care. Didn't listen to my intuition. The red flags were orange for me, maybe sometimes blue. So yeah, so like we go and we meet this guy, and like I did not trust my higher self or anything at the time, and immediately when I see him, I literally get chills. Like I get chills, and his eyes, y'all. And I say this and I like remember it. So he has this like golden green eyes. It's like piercing. But his eyes, I thought I saw like a snake. Like, I don't know. Like, you know how like the snake's eyes are like this thin black line? I don't know. But immediately when I see him, I feel like a gravitational pull, and I see it. And he like smiles, and he's very good looking. Usually my karmics are like godly good. Like, they're usually really good. Not all of them, but they're really good looking. I'm not hyping myself up. I'm just saying whatever. So he's like crazy good looking. And I was just like, again, ignoring the red flag was blue. It was blue. And I just feel this pull to him, like gravitational pull. And I literally look at my friend. The first thing I said, and I look at my friend and I goes, he looks like the devil. That's the first thing I told my friend. I was like, he looks like the devil. And he overhears me and he starts like laughing sarcastically. And the guys, y'all, the guys I've been into, because I like smart asses. I like a smart guy. Like, I like a smart A guy. So always super sarcastic, and I've fallen into like narcissistic cycles because of the type of, I like these really intelligent, goofy type of guys. So he overhears me and he thinks it's the most charming thing ever that I think he looks like the devil. And, yeah, let's continue the story. The whole time I was around him, I felt fear. Like, I felt scared, but it was like a scared, but also like, it was some Damon effect, some Damon and Elena effect, okay? But this is not a TV show. And last time I checked, Damon was not, harmonious, especially in the beginning seasons. It was that effect for sure. And, I think the first time, just TMI, like we did make out, the first time we hung out. And then afterwards, the next time we had to go to the game, this is where the spirit animal comes up, because spirit was really testing me to see if I would pay attention to red flags. But again, I was colorblind. The red flags were blue. and I failed the test. So the second time, okay, we were going into the game and we're walking up to the door. I'm so excited to see him, all this stuff, da da da. I'm cloud nine, carried away now. This animal, which again, I'm gonna say it was coyote because we were in the valley and I think there's a lot of like coyotes. But either way, I was too stunned to speak. I'm walking and right in front of the door, this coyote comes out of nowhere and stands up in front of me. My friend already is like walked in the door. She's opening the door waiting on me and it stands up in front of me. And it just stands up and it stares, doesn't bark or anything. I think if it barked, I would have been on the floor. I was already wanting to like faint, hyperventilating. So it stands up in front of me. I'm thinking today's the end. Today's the end. It's the end. It's the end because I like a boy. It's the end. And it stands up in front of me and it's just staring. But like, again, I did not think anything about telepathic. Like I was trying to stay on the floor, very grounded, but it was telepathically talking to me saying, go home. This is not like go home, turn around, get out of here. And it didn't bark, it didn't do anything, but it just stood there frozen. And I stood there frozen for at least like a minute or 2 minutes here. And I just stood there. I didn't do any of that. And then it moves away and it goes into this bush and it just stares there, staring to see what I'm going to do. And at that moment, I knew that I had to stop. I knew that there was no, like, I knew why it was there. I knew everything. And I didn't say anything to my friend, but I walked in and I went in and I don't think anything happened. I could be fibbing a bit. I could be fibbing, but I know at that point that connection was like crumbled though. I think it was like still flirting and then it like crumbled. So that's the first time the spirit animal made themselves clear. And this was during a time where I knew that spirit was really testing my intuition. They were testing me, okay, a lot. It was like, they always intended to protect me, by the way, because then, of course, I found out something with him and another girl. He was acting like a jerk, as they usually do. So they were protecting me, but they were testing me to see if I could like recognize certain signs and making things clear as day and showing me how that they were going to show up for me later in life. Yeah, so another time was when I went to lunch with a friend, and it doesn't just happen with guys, it happens with friends too. But when an animal, I'll never, ever, ever, ever take that for granted in my life. When an animal starts acting very strange and random animals start acting really strange around people, I pay attention. If there's anything with like a house infestation or anything like that, which I went through with my apartment, I pay attention of who there's someone around that they do not want me around. And that is something, it took me a long time, but I finally surrendered to that. So the next time I was at lunch with a friend who was very like obsessive with me, and an animal came down, like fell from the sky right next, like literally next to me. And at this point, I was already reading tarot and everything on TikTok, so she knew who I was. So anytime things happen like that around me and my close personal friends or anyone around me, they do look at me sideways. They're like, what is going on? Because nothing's a coincidence in my life. So yeah, it falls and it's like wing broke, like fell like right next to my feet. That friend was no longer in my life shortly after. The next time I had a situation with a snake that I had, there was this cabin that my guides really wanted us to go home from because it was not the safest area. We also forced kind of a vacation. None of us were really feeling it, and that is something I have learned. I never force vacations. If I don't feel right, I don't care what it is. I don't care if I have the money. I don't do it. Even if it's a short trip, I never force going anywhere. But at this time, it was like I really wanted to go because I wanted to go. They've broken down a lot of that Taurus stubbornness within me. A lot of it, wake-up calls. But we went. The energy was not right. Should have gone home early, whatever. Nothing bad happened, but the energy was just like really, really off. And I would go and I would sit in an area that was like, I would kind of try to go into the forest by myself. A lot of this has to do with forest next door, but whatever. Try to go into the forest by myself. I'm realizing that a lot of weird things happen to me when I am in nature, specifically by myself or around certain people. Yeah. So I would sit there by myself feeling like, oh, I was so safe. And one morning in front of the entrance, and I would kind of go pretty deep in there, a snake comes out. as soon as I opened the door. And it lifts its head up and it goes, literally shakes its head and go, no. That was the long story short. Animal guides are very real.